Hello, I'm Josh Wilkinson and welcome to Chatting, presented by Made.
Hello, please can you introduce yourself for everybody that's watching?
Hiya, my name's Jodie Smith and I am a media producer living in Manchester.
Amazing. So thanks so much for chatting to me. It's really good to see you, even though it's virtual. Tell us a little bit about the role that you have now. What do you do? And do you work with a specific organization, or tell us a little bit about
Okay, brace yourself because
that?
trying to explain my job is very complicated, but I do my best. So, yeah, I'm a senior media and content producer for a community interest company. If you don't know what that means, it just means that we sort of do good work only. We work with other good organizations, and we're not just for profit. So we're called Yellow Jigsaw, and we run our own intergenerational media projects. So we run Talking About My Generation, which is the UK's first newsroom led for and by older people in Greater Manchester. So, you know, why do old people have to go through younger professionals? They can just speak for themselves. So we've given them a platform, we train them up. They're on TikTok doing TikTok dances and stuff. It's great. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we run a project called Media Cubs. So we go into schools, community clubs, work with young people, train them up to have a go at media, basically. And it's not really about the outcome, it's about the doing. So learning new skills, getting their confidence up. And we have a set of mini reporters that we take places. And like last week, we took them to a theatre and they reviewed show, and they do all sorts. They're great. I do videography, I do social media, I do a lot of journalism because of the news part of the website, blogging, and then a lot of workshop delivery as well.
Brilliant. Cool. So it sounds like it keeps you on your toes a bit, which is
Absolutely.
yeah. So I guess, you've listed all those things that you do. What do you find the most enjoyable out of all them? Is it good that it is a variety of stuff, but what I suppose stands out to you as the thing that you most enjoy, like really getting into?
I really enjoy the videography, like making videos, because that's what I used to enjoy when I was younger. I used to like get all my family together and like make them do really stupid stuff and put them on YouTube. I think it's still out there somewhere. And I just used to edit it on Windows Movie Maker, I think. Do you remember Windows Movie Maker? That's pretty old school. So I always loved doing that. I always found it fun. Did film A level, got to make some films at A level, which I thought was great. And yeah, I went and studied something slightly different. I studied broadcast journalism, which had a little bit of video making in it, but yeah, it's where I'm most creative, is putting cool videos together.
I'm interested to hear what your journey was like from school. Like, at school age, what did you want to do? And how did you decide on your college? And then when you were at the college, how did you decide on the university? What were those stepping stones like for you?
Okay, so probably not what you'd expect. So when I was 15, I signed up to the army, because I lived on a housing estate, which was part of like a military base. It was very rural. There wasn't much going on. The only hobby I had was army cadets. And that was kind of what I was pushed into, even though looking back is not what I wanted to do at all. I felt some sort of pressure to do it. So I was actually going to go in when I was 16. And like last minute was like, no, like I'm not going to do this, because I actually just want to pursue these creative things. So I picked loads of creative A levels. I did film, English, drama, and I also did psychology for some reason. But yeah, 3 like creative ones there. Just for context, there was like 4 people in my film A level. And people, I'm going to say this because other people might have come across as, people were really mean about me doing these creative subjects. People were like, these aren't real subjects. Look at me, I'm doing like 3 sciences. I was like, yeah, but this is actually what I enjoy. And that's one of the things I would say now, is just pick things you enjoy, because it's just there's no point doing stuff you don't enjoy. I didn't apply to university. I didn't think I was going to get good A-level grades. I I didn't have that belief. So when I got my A-level results, I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually going to go and do something. And I rang up the clearing hotline and I was like, can I come and do, and I just picked something out the air. I was like, oh, I'll do broadcast journalism, because I went to a careers fair a couple of years back and I got to go on in that BBC van where you speak on the microphone. I loved it. So I was like, all right, I'll do that. And yeah, I just got accepted, went off, and was just thrown into a world of media. I mean, I studied at the University of Salford, so that's at Media City, so perfect place, really.
I think that's really interesting because, I mean, it's a question that I have now about how some of the skills that you get in university or through education that are maybe a bit more like vocational, and the practical skills that maybe aren't the things that are on paper when you're studying, but are actually the things that you pick up and take forward. Do you think there are any skills that you did pick up through your college time and uni time that then you've taken away to the role that you're doing now, that maybe wasn't, as I said, the thing you were being marked on?
Yeah, and I understand. I think the biggest thing is university, yes, it provides you with a degree, but for me, it was the networking opportunities and the practical work experience. So I went off and did work experience with ITV and Global, so like Heart Radio. And that was I just found it so different to what we did in uni. I was like, okay, right, this is the real world. And I just got involved in every single extra opportunity at uni. So I did student radio, because why not? It was so fun. And I did student TV called Keys TV, where we just go out and make like programs and chat shows. So it's those extra things which you don't have to do. And I was so surprised because not a lot of people like did them.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm here. They're free. I'm going to do them. Every time an email came into my inbox with an opportunity, I was like, yes. And that's actually how I got my job that I'm working for now. So I had an email saying, do you want to do a little bit of work experience on this older people's website? And I was like, yes. Everyone else was like, no, that's not my thing. Like, yeah, sure. Loved it. Got to write loads of articles over lockdown when we actually weren't doing uni anyway. That's a whole other story, isn't it, about COVID uni. And then, yeah, they were like, oh, okay, quite like you. They offered me some freelance work at the end of uni. And then they gave me a job after uni. So it's making those connections, doing those little extra things. My uni course was really, I don't know if it's just journalism. They were really like, give you a task. And they were like, off you go. Like, really just, sort it out. So I felt really like launched into stuff and really out of my comfort zone a lot of the time. As like a young reporter, you have to go to random places and just do stuff that you might feel really out of your comfort zone, but is really helpful to do that.
Yeah, I guess like you say, when you're having these, when you're thrown into tasks at university, or you're thrown into meeting new people, like even just the prospect of meeting a random group of people, however big or small that group is, it is quite daunting, isn't it? And I think we get over that fairly quickly and then maybe forget how much of a big deal it was, because you make such, good friends and connections afterwards. But that's almost like an exercise of networking. It's an exercise of when you do get employed and you are thrown into a new team, isn't it? And I think that's something that, it's really good to hear from you, but also that when you say you were thrown out to do different tasks and reports sort of like within Media City, and that could be quite daunting as well because of the people that are knocking about that space. But what a great opportunity to have on your doorstep. With all of this, what when going into your role now, is there anything that when going into that role that you were maybe not sure about? Like, so when we go into new roles, we obviously go through a whole interview process. What was that interview process like for you? Was it something that was quite nerve-wracking? Was it something that you were really like studying for and making sure you were rehearsing it and going over? And what sort of questions did they ask you? I suppose this is a question for those people that have never had their first interview yet, or an interview at all for work.
Okay, I'm a bad example for this, but I will give you an example. So I got my job because I did work experience and then I did freelance and then they offered me a job. So it worked slightly differently, but at uni, at the end of uni, I did have a bit of a panic and I did apply to loads of jobs at the time that I wasn't sure I was going to be offered a role. So I applied for this PR job, right? And one thing I will say is that I did not want the PR job. So number one tip, don't apply to jobs that you don't want. Just because you're panicking, like, please don't do that. You know, I think there's this pressure either coming out of uni and at a certain age to be doing certain things. They will ask you to tell them about yourself, which is a very difficult question. So make sure you have really specific answers and not just like you're just plucking random things out the air, because they want to know about you, but they also at the same time you really have to sell yourself specifically for the role. Like straight away they want to know how you're going to apply to that specific role. They will like to know why you want to work for them specifically, so this might be a given, but make sure you have done a lot of research on them. I think they asked me specific questions about their PR firm as well, which if I hadn't have looked into, I would have looked a bit silly. And I always like to ask them a question. So sometimes they don't explain it very well. And I always say, well, can you tell me what a good question is, can you tell me what a normal day in the life at this job will be? That's quite a good one to ask. And prepare for quite a lot of jobs, especially in the creative industry now, will ask for you to do tasks. I just want to say be really careful there, because I know a lot of people take the mick a little bit with that, and you know, asking you to do a lot of work and prepare things. And I don't think sometimes bigger companies, I think you have to be quite careful there. That
You mean like they might ask you to write like a whole brief or a plan for an idea, and then you send that in and it's like you don't get the job, but they might use that idea.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this isn't like a secret thing, like this happens in the creative industry. So
I suppose there's just a little bit of consideration about what you share. And I guess what that highlights is what you've said there in general is when you go for interviews, and especially when you're a freelancer, I suppose, and you're not attached to a specific organization yet, or you're still just bouncing around, there's that consideration of the interview process is as much for you as it is for them, isn't it? Like you say, a question about what's the day-to-day life look like. If they said something that you were like, oh gosh, that doesn't sound like me, and even if you got offered the job, you're being offered the job, so you can decline it, and it's just something to consider. It's really interesting to hear that you went through a process as well that was more like work experience and building that relationship anyway. And I think, like you've said, having those skills of networking from college and uni seemed to help you with that. And that's something that's really interesting to hear from your specific journey. Going into that, like now you've been in this, how long have you done this role for now?
2 years since I started freelance. So but longer than, like, I've started work experience like 3 years ago. So but a couple of years.
And so with the work that you do, has there ever been a moment that you could pinpoint that I suppose you used sort of creative problem solving with a problem that came your way? Or has there ever been an issue or a collaboration or something you've made where you've had to kind of go, oh wait, we need to put a stop to that and we need to think of a solution, and you've maybe used some of those things, those tools that we've discussed?
Always. So the media world is you will come across challenges every day. I just think the nature of the job, especially, I know you said creative problem, but just be prepared. If you work in media, that technical problems are going to be quite a big bane of your life. So I've gone out to like huge like shoots on my own and the cameras just like decided not to work. Just stuff like that. And you just have to find ways around it. You might come back from a shoot and you don't like any of the footage, and it's just stuff like that, and you've got to maybe re-edit it in a slightly different way. And media is not just working with kit, it's 90% working with people. So we like to make, one of the big things that Yellow Jigsaw is making people feel really comfortable in front of the camera. So that's a lot of my job, is persuading people that, you know, they're fine on camera. You know, I'm really comfortable around that kind of thing, and other people aren't. So you're kind of working with people and making sure that they know what they're doing.
You know, like you said there, it's a media and tech problem, but it's not necessarily a creative solution. But I guess if you're editing something, if you come back, you go and film loads of different things in an interview, and then you come back and what you've got isn't exactly what you planned, but then you have to work with it. I suppose that is creative problem solving, isn't it? Because you have to think creatively how you're going to splice this stuff together. I know I've done that a lot. But it's really interesting as well to think about how, again, coming back to those people skills, being able to discuss and just talk with people is something that I suppose, I don't know, is something that's been highlighted throughout what you've been saying. Having that ability to just have a conversation and to chat with people and to kind of network, being a scary word, but if you really break that down, it's just chatting away, isn't it? Like what we're doing now.
Yeah, and we're a small company. We're a team of 5 people, which I like working in a small team because things get done really efficiently. If you work in I don't know how, I mean, I'm sure it does work. But, you know, these huge teams, like, how do people work in these huge teams? I'm used to working with like 4 people. But yeah, we're kind of, you know, we're growing. You feel really part of a small company and you feel like you're growing it personally. So it's kind of a lot of figuring out the direction that we're going, which is really nice to be involved in that. Because with media, I feel it's important to say there's like pressure sometimes to work for these like huge companies, but they might not align necessarily with your own ethics or ethos. So, you know, don't be afraid to work for a smaller company, and you definitely will make your mark a lot more, I would say, than working for a bigger company.
Well, that's a great bit of advice, and it's something that I think, as you were saying before, when you're leaving university or education and you're looking for a job role, and there is a sense of panic, I suppose, that could set in. It's like, I've got to get a job quickly, and I've got to, because I know for a lot of people, you do need a job. You need to earn money and live.
So I have a full-time job at Yellow Jigsaw, but and I feel like a lot of people do this. So I trained in live news. That was what my degree is. So I am doing what a lot of people do. They keep their foot in the water. So on the weekend, I work as a freelance reporter for Greatest Hits and Hits Radio. So you might want to do that. Just because you have a job doesn't mean you can't do, you know, you can freelance. There was one point where I thought I would like not be offered a full-time role, and I was just going to freelance through different organizations, which obviously I just do a little bit now, but that's great because I can do my job and make my mark there, and then also do this really exciting bit of reporting on the weekend. So don't feel tied down to one thing.
Well, I've loved speaking to you. It's been really interesting, and I think that it's been really great to hear, you know, what your path was and what your stepping stones were, because again, it just adds to the conversation of all the different possibilities that this sort of, you know, creative industries offer. And yeah, it's been really great just to get to know you and hear a little bit about that. So thanks very much for joining. And on behalf of everybody watching, I thank you for giving your time. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.